Before Klay Thompson tore his ACL, people had some pretty high expectations for the Warriors. And even though those expectations were not reached, the 2020 season showed us exactly why the Warriors can be a contender as soon as next season. The Warriors were 3 games away from being the number 5 seed in the Western Conference. And that's so remarkable because during the year, Steph Curry missed 9 games. And in those games, the Warriors went 2-7. So if Steph played all 72 games, I strongly believe this season the Warriors will be playing the Nuggets or the Clippers in the first round of the playoffs. But there are so many other factors that contributed to why the Warriors missed the playoffs in 2021. Nonetheless, other teams in the West like the Lakers, Nuggets, and Trailblazers all had to deal with that as well. But the biggest thing about the Warriors headed into next season that nobody's really talking about outside of Klay Thompson's return is their draft capital. The Timberwolves finished with the 6th worst record in the NBA, and the Warriors had their first round pick this year from the D'Angelo Russell trade, which has a top 3 protection on it. If it falls in the top 3 this year, the Warriors are going to get an unprotected 2022 pick from Minnesota. But since they missed the playoffs, their own 2021 pick is also in the lottery, which will likely stay at 14. So this morning, I ran the Tankathon simulator 100 times, and 73% of the time, the Warriors got the Timberwolves pick because there is just a 27% chance the Timberwolves keep that pick, meaning there's a very likely chance the Warriors this year are going to have 2 picks in the lottery, as well as having James Wiseman. And here's why the draft capital the Warriors own these next 2 seasons is so important. Not because the Warriors need more first and second year players to fill out the rotation, but because Golden State has more assets than any other team in the NBA, not named the OKC Thunder. They already have James Wiseman, who averaged 20 and 10 per 36 this year, and in the 39 games he played showed exactly why he was taken with the 2nd overall pick in the 2020 draft. And even though his rookie year was somewhat disappointing, we all know he has some serious potential and certainly can garner a lot of value for Golden State if they decide to trade him. But perhaps just as notable, in one of the best draft classes in recent memory, the Warriors have 2 lottery selections, one of which will most likely fall anywhere from 4 to 9. So this is what brings me to the biggest decision the Warriors are going to make in quite some time. Option number 1, they hold on to James Wiseman and expect him to take the 1st to 2nd year lead many players take when they're taken that high in the draft, which is possible, but in the Warriors system, he doesn't fit in perfectly offensively, and as we saw in the playing game, the Warriors don't need a traditional center like James Wiseman because Draymond can do a good enough job playing the small ball 5. Not only that, but offensively, when Klay Thompson's back, it gives them the opportunity to run a guy at the 4 who could space the floor even better than Draymond, so Draymond not being a good enough 3-point shooter won't be much of an issue because he's playing the center role where he's mostly playmaking on the offensive end. So then for the Warriors, they'll have the 1st and 2nd best shooters in the NBA at the 1 and the 2, then Andrew Wiggins, who has developed mightily as a feature forward in Golden State, and then they could add a guy who could play the 4 like Bobby Portis if he opts out of his players option in Milwaukee. Whereas with Draymond, as the years have gone on, Draymond's gotten worse and worse as a shooter, therefore teams just leave him wide open, which is why Steph Curry usually has to run a track meet every single night for the Warriors. So really for the Warriors, unless they think James Wiseman will develop into an all-star caliber player in the next year and a half, they shouldn't keep James Wiseman. With James Wiseman and the draft picks they have, they could outbid, like I mentioned, any team in the NBA minus maybe Oklahoma City, which leads me to option number 2, where the Warriors can look to move James Wiseman for a player that helps them win now. If they could add a guy who could play the other forward spot along with Andrew Wiggins, who could shoot above league average on high enough volume, that would add a dimension the Warriors haven't had since Kevin Durant left. The question becomes to the Warriors though, what players will they trade for? Karl-Anthony Towns probably won't be traded this season. Kristaps Porzingis has serious injury concerns, and most of the other players in the trade market are guards, which the Warriors certainly do not need more of. For the Warriors though, these are the 2 options. They could either stay on course with developing James Wiseman and using these 2 top lottery picks they have on guys who could possibly contribute in 2022, or instead they could look to move it all for a player that helps them win now, whoever that may be. And while there may not be a player on the market right now that's perfect for the Warriors to trade for, the good news is they could outbid just about any other team in the NBA when considering most of the teams that have more assets won't be looking to make a big splash in the offseason. And it all starts with a draft lottery, and whatever happens from there is in the hands of the Golden State Warriors. So you guys let me know in the comments down below if Golden State should keep James Wiseman and these picks they have, or if they should be aggressive and look to move those for players that help them contend for a championship in 22 once Klay Thompson comes back. Expect a lot more NBA content coming up as the playoffs come around and more teams get eliminated, because this is just the start of all the content to come.